Ready when you are. We're up there when you.
Good evening. This is the Monday, May 20th Nominations and Appointments Committee meeting. My name is Chris Miller. I'm counselor for District 6, and with me is Vanessa Campos, counselor for District 1, and Wesley Butler for District 4. Tonight we have two interviews for board. One is a reappointment to the Planning Commission, and the second one is a new appointment to the Planning Commission. And we will start with the first one, which is the reappointment, and that is with Will Sinfici.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Sinfici. Am I pronouncing?
Oh, you can hear me? Great.
I'm sorry?
You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, great, because I've had audio problems for the planning meetings, but this is working. Terrific.
Great. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Is it
Yes,
Sinfici?
thank you, Counselor, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know since this is a reappointment, you've been through this process before, but for our watching audience, just so everybody understands the process, we will be taking turns asking you a few questions. When we're done with our questions, if you have any questions for us, you can ask them. And so I'll start. I know you've been on the board since 2014. And before that, were you on the charter board?
Yes, well, actually, during this time, I served on the charter board, the review board that reviews the charter every 5 years.
Okay, very good.
From 2019 to 2020.
Okay.
Yes.
During the time on the planning board, what were the things that you felt worked well, or the things that you felt needed improvement?
The main thing was that we needed to update our process through our subdivision land development ordinance, modernize certain things with some antiquated provisions in it, and streamline it better so that we can go ahead and issue conditional approvals. And whereas before then we were hampered, there had been a court ruling before my time on the commission that we should not be issuing conditional approvals. We could do preliminary approvals, of course, and so we modified our process whereby we could grant conditional approvals if the conditions are met that our staff set out and our planning consultant, and then there's a review after the fact that we can reaffirm the project. So we still may be dealing with some projects longer, but at least they're not being held up, which is critical for their funding, we understand. And so I think we've tried to do that to accommodate, and we made a number of other provisional changes. And so the updates that we did and you and the council approved and the mayor have really helped the process a lot. In addition, we changed in a way our purview so that we could review changes in use. When a property would change its use, we had no say before. And we're finding that this has been a valuable process because it can affect things like the parking and the lighting and landscaping and curbs and sidewalks, etc. And so having that review, and sometimes it's an easier process because sometimes the footprint of the building isn't changing, and we're not concerning ourselves with the interior so much. That's for building and trades, but just those other matters that are the normal planning concerns, we are able to address those at that time, which I think is definitely better for the city and the public. So that's been the main thing were those changes, and our planning consultant, and this has been a process that had started before that, has been recommending changes to the zoning laws as well. As you may know, the Planning Commission has to give our recommendation on any changes to zoning laws, zoning ordinances, I should say. And whereas with the subdivision land development ordinance, it's our initiative, and I'm proud to say those, you know, a number of those were my ideas in that. But in the planning, on the zoning, we have to give a recommendation, and we've been doing that, and council has been approving those as well. And there's a number of phases that we're going through, and these always go through the Berks County Planning Commission for their review, and we look them over very thoroughly. Some of us have professional experience with editing. I mean, our chairman is a former journalist. I'm a historian. It's been published, and my work, I review death certificates all day. I'm editing, basically. So we will look over these with a fine-tooth comb and fix every grammatical and spelling mistake that we could possibly find, in addition to reviewing the content. So I feel that when it goes through our process, we're passing along to you something that we're confident in, and the citizens can be proud of if it meets with your approval. And so that's really been one of the most rewarding parts of this process, has been our effect on the ordinances. Of course, we're governed by the Municipal Planning Code, which is the state law, and then of course these ordinances, and of course we do our reviews of the plans that developers bring us. And I'll pause there for more questions.
Thank you. Councilor Campos?
So your question is that you asked was what's gone well and what can be improved, right? Well, your answer kind of gave a lot, kind of touched on a lot of the other questions that we were thinking of asking.
Yeah, sorry. That's okay.
I'm thinking, how is if you could give us a little bit more clarity of how is the commission's relationship with the city planner and zoning offices? I know you touched on it briefly, but.
Yes, that's a good question, Councilor. We work closely with the planning consultant. Now we have a new planner. I guess he's a planning manager is his title. Thank you, because we've pleaded in the past that we needed some staff support. So we appreciate that. We work very well with them. We trust the technical expertise of these staff members and consultants. We work well with zoning. There are differences between our rules and theirs, but I think there's no problems of any kind that I can see between us. And we also work very closely with Public Works. Public Works, under the ordinance, has to approve various matters. So think about utility lines and traffic signage and a whole series of things like that. Huge factor is stormwater management. And they know all the technical aspects of the federal and state laws in regard to that. So we, of course, defer to their judgment, and we work very well with them. We couldn't work without them, really. We need all these technical people's input. So for members of the commission, now we all have our own various backgrounds. We don't have to be proficient technically, but it helps if we have some knowledge and background. I mean, my interest is in historical architecture preservation. When I served before the school board, all we were doing was building a renovation. So we had to go through all this process, and I used to watch the meetings on television myself and read about them. So I picked up on these. I know the parliamentary procedure. I talked already about our work on ordinances. But as we gain experience, once in a while, we'll ask something of a technical nature that fell through the cracks, perhaps, or just wasn't apparent at first. And so we contributed that way. But mostly, like I say, we do rely on those professionals. And I feel the city has been very well served. I have no complaints or concerns, I'm happy to say.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Will.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Will, thanks for wanting to be on the planning commission again for another term.
Thank you.
My only question is, are there any issues that the city could assist with when it comes to the
Yes, thank you. we have been trying to make an effort, and I've talked about it before, to get our comprehensive plan finished. And this is going in fits and starts over the years. And if there is any way we could get the support, because of all the staffing changes, the city has been through, it was enough for us to keep up with our annual reports that we're required to give. I know there'll be one presented, if it hasn't already, this month. And are keeping up just with the minutes. These support type things, administrative tasks that staff is handling for us. That, like I said before, when there were gaps in the staff coverage, these things fell by the wayside. We got behind, so we have not been able to focus our attention as much on the comprehensive plan. And we have been, as I said, doing all these development plans. We've had more plans because we're doing these change of use reviews, and we've focused on these ordinances. So the comprehensive plan, it comes up now and then. I've been trying to encourage, if there is any way that the city could find some grant or something for any technical support. I don't know. I have no idea what's available. If there's something, staff support internally, any ideas you might have, we would definitely appreciate for assistance with that. It's our responsibility, but if there's any way the city can help, as I think was done in the past, certainly having a planning manager probably helps, like I say, catching up with these administrative tasks even further. When we had the last two planners, they were catching up, and that helped us. But that would be the one area, definitely, I would say, where if there's anything council could think of, or the administration, we would definitely be open to to accepting some help on that. At least this member would be. I can't speak for everybody, but I think that's a fundamentally important role for us and for the city to have. And like I said, a lot of great work was done on it. There was a lack of satisfaction a previous administration had with the one that a consultant a paid consultant had done for the city, the one back in 2015. Sections were erroneous. Things had to be updated. A lot of reports have been done. These are great reports, and some compendium has been made of those. So, like I say, a lot of progress has been done. We've gone over drafts. At one point, I chaired the commission. We had a public input session, and we got some great input on that at that time. So I feel as though we have something to work with. We just need to get that done. It's important guidance for the city, and it would be as I said, a volume, one volume piece of all those other reports, and they'd be all together in one place that the city has paid for, and that have great ideas in them. And we don't want them to fall by the wayside, and as they always say, proverbially, just gather dust on a shelf, which has been something that's been a problem over the years, and you probably know. So we do have something that's been worked on, as I said, at times, but we need to finish that. Now that we've caught up on all the other administrative tasks, that would definitely be the priority area.
All right, thank you for your response.
Oh, thank you. And it's been a pleasure to serve. I enjoy it. I'm glad to be able to use the talents, abilities they have. Thank you for appointing other members. I see there's another interviewee for the other vacancy. That's great, and it definitely helps that we have enough. We don't have the bare minimum for a quorum. That's good. And like I said, I really don't have any complaints or concerns as far as anything with the city. Our council representative has been attending regularly, Councilor Baez, and that's been, I think, helpful for us, and I hope it's especially helpful for the council. I think it's a good idea. I know, of course, people can watch on television, as many do, but being able to participate is great. So I encourage that, and I'm appreciative of that. So thank you. I can't think of anything else on top of my head.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Planning meets virtually, hybrid, or in person?
Hybrid.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we have found that a lot of the developers prefer that, because sometimes we've come to learn or at least the engineers, they may have more than one municipality they must appear before in an evening. And so they can attend without a conflict. It's certainly a lot easier on them than driving around at nighttime, and staff as well. So that has worked out. Most of them attend virtually. And so we're pleased to be able to offer that. So that was another good question. So thank you. We're glad to have that. And it definitely has worked out well.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Sinfici, did you have any questions for us?
No, thank you again. I appreciate this opportunity and your confidence in me to reappoint me. I would appreciate it. Like I say, it's an honor and a privilege to serve, and I look forward to continue to do so. There's a couple of us that have the more experience, and that it does help having the institutional knowledge, and it's good to have some new people on as well. And as they learn, they contribute more. And I think we do pretty well together as a group, and it'll be nice to have the full complement of 7 then with the next appointment. So thank you all very much.
Okay, I know since this is a reappointment, you're familiar with the process, but I'm going to have Shelley explain so that the people who are watching understand what the process is from this point.
So the committee will discuss the interview and make a final determination once all the interviews are completed. If your reappointment moves forward, the resolution will be on the agenda next week on Tuesday because of the holiday.
Right.
And you will then hear from me either way, officially.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll be meeting that night, as a matter of fact. So that's I'll wait to hear from you when we're there. But thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, we'll move on to our next interview, and this is in person. And is your last name pronounced Trocti?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you at the meeting at the library about a month ago?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought you looked familiar. I
Yeah.
think you've gotten a haircut since then.
yes,
Good to see you again. Okay, this is also for the planning commission, although Christopher, this, unlike Mr. Sinfici, you are applying for the first time, correct?
yeah,
Okay. The way the process works is that the 3 counselors will be asking you a few questions.
Mhm.
And then when we're done, and it's very casual, you know, just be relaxed.
Mhm.
At the end, if you have any questions for us, we will try and answer them. So I started out the last time. Would somebody like to take the lead this time?
Sure. So thank you for applying and for coming in for example. What do you believe is the purpose of the planning commission?
Oh, well, I guess it's just to make sure everything is, efficiently laid out, that things are put in the right places. Say, when I used to play the game SimCity, they said, try and put the commercial near the residential, and sometimes try to put, the industrial a little bit further away from the residential so that, you know, the residents won't be exposed to the pollution and stuff like that as much, and the noise. And then also, I think it has a lot to do with quality of life, because I've read so much about how like, since they pretty much completely converted to everything bicycle in Amsterdam, the quality of life there has like skyrocketed, and, you know, people have less heart disease and obesity and stuff like that, and their overall sense of well-being is phenomenal in many cases and the world. So and then also like it's another way for the city to connect with the residents. Like, for example, I remember at the one meeting I had went to, there have been, concern with the, increased traffic that would be due to the new skate park and stuff like that. And then I thought, is there a way that we could like transform that whole corridor and, like have, complete streets with center islands and all these crossing things, kind of like what I saw in Arizona, and bike lanes, stuff like that.
Well, it's a great answer. Thank you, for sharing. I forgot to.
I'll go next. Thank you, Christopher, and your words today. My question is, do you have any plan review experience?
Well, I did work with the Lancaster County Plan Commission's, bicycle pedestrian advisory council back when I lived in Lancaster County. And when the thing existed. And, so a lot of the times they would have like a plan for, say, a bridge or a development or something like that. And then they would ask us to sort of put on the final touches of it, like add some kind of pedestrian or bicycle accommodation. Sometimes it came down to if they were doing the new bridge, should they put, a 4-foot sidewalk on the one side and a 4-foot on the other side, or should they just do 8 feet on the one side and then have nothing on the other side? Something like that. And then also things like where should they put, some of the traffic islands to make it easier to cross and such.
Well, thank you. It's great to know you have experience in the planning.
My turn?
Yeah.
We usually ask everyone if they are being appointed for the first time, if they are familiar with the timeframes of the meetings and whether you feel that you can attend regularly to the meetings. For
Yeah.
planning, it's the 4th Tuesday of each month at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, that's good to hear. And what are the things that you would like to see as far as with the planning commission or your experience with being on the planning commission?
Well, I have heard that there is a plan to turn a good part of 7th Street into some sort of greenway that's bike and pedestrian only. And I definitely would like to see more easy ways for bicycles and pedestrians to be able to go through the city. Like I went to Lancaster last week and I saw all these new bike lanes that they had put in there, in like the past year or something like that. The transformation was pretty amazing. And it would also be nice to see a lot more, say, of those mixed use developments, sort of those village overlay kind of things. And like the mixed price points and all, so that poor people wouldn't be priced out of certain neighborhoods and stuff. And yeah, it would be nice if we could sort of experiment with like new types of zoning laws and such that would allow people to be, I don't know, more creative in the neighborhoods.
I saw in your resume, you listed that you read Thomas Hilton.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually came to my conference and presented about why missing is walkability in terms of schools. I really liked that whole movie. Incidentally, it was originally an extra credit project for biodiversity class. freshman year, biology general ed class at State College. And so, after I saw that movie, I was stoked. And in particular, it impressed me that like ordinary people could get involved, without necessarily having any planning experience, and that there were ways of like getting, getting a hold of that information. Like, for example, back in the day, I had once visited, the Lancaster County Planning Commission's library. They have a planning library there. And then in one of the books I found, like, they have, like comprehensive plans with other counties, like, or between like 3 counties sometimes, something like that. Yeah, it would be, sometimes I do get into a little bit of, the sky's the limit thinking, and then I need to come back down to it. Like, for example, I wish that, that something could expand to more counties. So nice. And of course, I realized that was the crux of the passenger rail problem back in the day after that unfolded. So,
Okay. Any other questions? Did you have any questions for us?
Okay, well, I guess, what are some of the other, projects that the planning commission is currently working on, like, other than the kinds of stuff that I mentioned? Like, what are some city-specific things?
Well, there's a lot coming up, and I can't give you the details.
Oh, okay.
No, but I know, I can only speak for some of the things I know that are planned in my district. I can't speak for the city overall.
Yeah,
So one of the focuses on, is the downtown, and what exactly does the future hold? And in that equation, one of the things that you mentioned, like about walkability,
yeah.
bikes, things
I
like that.
remember hearing that at some point, Penn Street used to be all pedestrian only, and they used to have these magnificent.
That was in the '70s, the
Yeah.
late '70s. Yeah, urban renewal. We don't want to go there again.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't really a good idea, and actually a lot of cities thought that it would be a quick fix Band-Aid, and we all sort of realized that it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Although, I will say, last year when we had, the, visitors from Reading, England and Reutlingen, Germany, both those cities have pedestrian downtowns, city centers where the focus is on people, but, in the case of Reutlingen, it was designed that way hundreds of years ago, and they just kept it. In Reading, England, they just decided to close the streets to make it totally pedestrian, and they were surprised that we had the conversation that we had done that and then undid it.
yeah, and then we have the super fast trains here either.
Yeah, that's coming. All right. Shelley will explain the rest of the process to you from this point on.
So the committee then will discuss your interview and will make a determination whether or not the appointment moves forward. You will hear from me either way. If they do decide to move forward, your resolution will be on their meeting agenda on Tuesday next week, and then you'll get some official paperwork from the city clerk's office.
Okay, one more thing I did want to mention that came about was, there seems to be a concern that a large population of people from New York City may be relocating here. And, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was like making sure that, our bypasses don't become like New York City's, beltways or DC's beltway or Philly's, because really now. Just put it that way.
I think what we'll be seeing is there'll be different groups of people coming into the city, and that's nothing new. That's been the case
Yeah.
since the 19th century.
Yeah,
And in fact, hopefully if the train does come, and I think it will, there'll be yet another group
yeah,
of people that will soon discover Reading too. And
Yeah.
that's just part of what cities are. They're constantly changing. So
yeah,
the question is to be able, for the city to be able to handle whoever the new population is that moves in.
Yeah.
And to be able to educate what the way we prefer to run a city, which may be different from where they came from.
yeah, I didn't mean to say, don't welcome them. Of course, I want to welcome everybody.
Correct.
For the merrier, you know, have more ideas to build up the civilization.
Any other questions?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in. We appreciate that you took the time.
Okay.
And Shelley will be in touch
Okay.
later on.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Yep.
Nice meeting
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we need to discuss the two candidates. We'll start with Wilson Peachy, who obviously has a lot of knowledge from being on the planning commission since 2014. And also from some of the other boards that he's been on. I mean, it sounds like he really does have a good understanding of the functions of the planning commission. I feel that the conversation went very well with the questions that were asked, the questions that he asked. He seemed to have a good idea of where the planning commission is and what direction they should move in, and I'm in favor of appointing him. Pass it down the line.
I'm in favor as well. I think what I look out in the candidates is how passionate they are in serving and learning and wanting to, you need to have a drive to be in these positions, because with this interest and then not showing up in the quorum, it just works against us. He definitely had the passion, the interest, he was very thorough and knowledgeable of the planning commission, and that for me, it's important. And then just how thankful he was of new members coming. And I like the line that he said, that new fresh perspective. He was welcoming of that. And I think that's huge, because when you're reappointed for so many, times, sometimes you get comfortable with the same mindset and the people in that group. And for him to just think of, your vacancy, there'll be new perspective and to be welcoming. I think that was a plus for me. And both of them, both the candidates that we'll talk about Christopher next, that were open-minded. I think that's also important to give these things.
Yeah, I like Will's interview as well. Definitely was able to point out the needs in terms of, commission fitting in with the comprehensive plan. And he also mentioned, needing staff support. And I think that all comes from his experience from being on there. And I think he'd be valuable to have for another term.
Okay, good. So we are in favor of Mr. Sanfici. We'll move on to Mr., let me make sure I say his last name right, Christopher Trotti. I remember when I met him at the library, it was a community meeting. Chris was really engaging. I was impressed. And he seems to be the type of person that does a lot of research on his own to whatever the topic is that he's working with. I think he would be a good candidate, and I hate to say this, but only because it reflects on me too, but I think there are a lot of people on the boards that are close to my age. It's always good to see somebody younger who has interest, because it's sort of like and I think this is what Mr. Sanfici was hinting at, that, if you want a healthy board, you need to have the mix. You need to have people who have the knowledge that have been on for a while, but you still need to have new people that have different ideas. And it may not always work that everybody's in agreement, but it makes the wheels turn and it makes people think. So that's one of the things I like about Christopher. I thought it was interesting, his response to some of the questions, because he hasn't been here that long, so he's referencing to other communities, which I think is refreshing. It's nice to not always look at, as some people do, Reading and only Reading and Reading as it was. He seems to have an idea more of looking at Reading, what it could be. And I think that was very impressive. So I'm in favor.
Absolutely, I agree as well. Again, the open-mindedness, and I think just like you mentioned, you said it very nicely, Chris, just challenging a little bit how we're used to doing things. I can hear in his responses, he's looking, thinking outside the box. And when he said the sky is the limit, and he gets into that, sometimes it's a good thing. The sky is the limit. What else can we do to change, and get Reading into a better place? And I know I also read it in his response. He just wants to, the exact words that he said in one of the questions is he wants Reading to be a world-class city again. So that, I think, he has his mind and heart in the right place. Or well,
Wow. Yeah, for Christopher as well, I really like that he had experience, because he mentioned, being on the Lancaster Bicycle Planning Commission. And although Lancaster is a smaller city than ours, of course, we have more challenges. I do like that he had started somewhere in planning and not just when if he was appointed, he comes into a situation where he doesn't know what he's doing. So, yeah, I definitely support that. I have faith in him.
Okay, so we're in agreement with both the candidates, and does that fill the requirement for planning for the total that's needed?
I believe there is one person who's filling on an expired term. So we may need one more person.
I thought I read it was three, so we have three positions that are open, and then we have the two, so there might be one more.
Yeah, I believe there is one, there may be one more.
Okay.
I'll check in with that person and see if he's planning to.
The good news is, I mean, it should help them if they
Yes,
have issues with the form.
absolutely.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the conversations we've been having about exit interviews for people stepping off of boards. And I think at the last meeting, we were pretty much in agreement with the questions, except for some wordsmithing for the first question, which Shelley reworked. So any comments? And the question is, the one that was, the question that was questioned was trying to create a neutral environment to ask the question of the candidate stepping away from the board without making it sound like a negative, because it could be other reasons. Their schedule change, they could be moving out of state. So it now is written as, please explain why you decided to step away from your position. I think that's neutral.
Mhm. I think so too. I like the please explain because it will leave it open to them to just say what they want to say, so it's an open ended.
Okay, so with the change to the first question, the other questions as they were written before, which we seem to be okay with, are we good now with the exit interview questions? Okay, I think we should try it. We can always adapt if we feel one isn't working the way we feel it should. But I do think we should at least start with something. So good. We'll move forward with that. And then the next topic is the possible removal of youth commission members. Shelley, Wes, you know, I don't know who wants to take the lead on this.
I will if you don't, yeah, okay. So there are, most of the board and commission legislation includes a section about removing members if they are no longer active or responding to any type of business. There were two, that section does not appear in the youth commission legislation, so I can't just go do it. But there are two members that were appointed in 2023 that never engaged with the commission. So Mike suggested that I bring that to this committee to determine whether or not you're comfortable going through the removal process without it being in the legislation.
What's involved with creating legislation so that we can deal with future issues too?
So we can amend the enabling ordinance to add that it'll be the mirror of every other commission. That way, then this committee doesn't have to do it. The process would be that I would contact the member to get any kind of feedback, you know, why they're not coming. I've been too busy. I promise I'll come next time, you know, anything. If they're not responsive, then we do a more formal letter informing them that if they don't respond, council will be asked to remove them on an agenda, which is at this point where then if they don't respond to that, or they say, it's okay, take me off, or I resign, a lot of them will resign. These two people have not responded to text messages or emails, and that generation doesn't usually use US mail, so I didn't go through that step. But they have been contacted twice and I've not responded either time. So if you're agreeable, then there would be resolutions on Monday's agenda, removing these two individuals so that if there are others who step forward, those positions would be available to them.
So you're saying, Shelley, text, and what was the other?
Email.
So phone call and mail was not part of.
I did not reach out by phone. I can do that if you prefer. US mail I did not do,
Okay.
which I also can do if you prefer.
So what I'm thinking is, I know this is my understanding that the other boards or commissions, there's something in legislation that says 3 consecutive absences.
It's three meetings in a calendar year. Or if they're, you know, it's kind of how you can gauge, like you said, if someone's not interested in the position, they're gonna disengage and you're not gonna see or hear from them anymore. These two never even engaged. They came and they interviewed and everything was fabulous. Council appointed them and then I never saw them again.
So it's safe to say that they would go 3 times.
Right.
Yeah, absences.
Yeah, because it's coming up on a year and the commission meets monthly. Yeah, August of 23, it would have been,
I
it
thought
would
it was
be,
just like we were talking a couple months.
no.
Okay.
No, I don't generally do that unless it's an extended amount of time.
Okay.
And they get all of the emails about meetings, you know, everything that the text, the group chat that the moderator uses, they get all of that stuff and they're not
Or
responding.
they're receiving it?
It doesn't come back undeliverable with the emails that they supplied me. So
So my other question was, what were the dates that you reached out to them? Like, when did you notice 6 months in you started contacting, or by 8 months?
yeah, the first time let me see. The first time I contacted them was in February and they were not responsive.
So February was how long since they've been appointed? That, this year, February, this year?
It was 6 months.
So 6 months.
They were appointed in August and I never met them except for their interview, which I believe both of them were virtual.
So the first try was in February.
Yep, and then the second try was again in May. I've also already spoken with the commission itself, and they're okay moving this forward as well.
So I have a question. I mean, why did they apply if they never followed through?
I can't answer that. I don't know. It's a lot of work to get them to that point, and then they
Right.
just never,
But they come before the nominations committee.
correct.
So we approve them
Mhm.
for what they presented, we just can't tell moving forward.
I don't know. I've never gotten them to even respond to an email. Or I did also text them in May when I sent the second email.
I would ask the board, Wesley and Chris, if you think that, I don't know for sure, so you found last time was in May. How much longer, if we were to agree to contact them by mail and a phone call? Should we give them 2 more months? Should we, or is this kind of like it?
I think if it's been a year,
Just about.
that's extreme. If we were talking like 3 months, I'd say to give them the benefit of a doubt that either I don't know, they moved, their computer broke, their phone broke, but I mean, even in a year's time, if any of those things happen, most people would try to contact and say, I'm sorry, I've moved, I can't do this, or my phone broke and I couldn't connect, or to be able to communicate somehow, but to like have no communication is sort of speaking unto itself that they don't really have any interest.
A year would come in August, because they got in
Correct.
August, so we're still in May, we still got a few.
3/4 of it.
I'm thinking we hit the phone and we hit the email. There's still a method of contact we did not hit, which is the address. And I wonder if that's, we're checking all 3 boxes.
I can certainly do a letter.
What are your thoughts?
I guess we look at this as like a landmark case for a future, and we will do the phone call and we will do the mail. I don't think we'll see anything, but we'll do it just to be able to say that we made all forms of contact.
Right, like just to make sure we're being responsive to you. And I would say, I don't know what the board would think, if 6 months in, if like moving forward, if you want to have a plan, 3 months, check in, 6 months. And then by the 9th month, this is your last warning, because in 12 months, it's a year. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Right.
What do you think about that? But maybe we can even 3 months check in, here's, phone call.
I think we need to do like the other boards.
Mhm.
Okay. And since,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
How old are
I don't have their ages in front of me, so youth commission members are between 16 and 24.
they?
I mean, they're not little kids.
Not.
They're high school and
Well,
college.
okay.
And this is my personal belief, sometimes they think, oh, this will look good on my
Resume.
or whatever.
College applications,
And,
yeah.
I was accepted. For the board, they all, interviewed me and accepted me. So I'm good, and then they just don't bother to do the work,
It's not just kids that do that.
No.
I know adults that do it too.
You said 16 and 24 years of age.
Correct.
So I wonder if 18 and below, so 16 to 18 years old, if we can have a second form of contact, just because they're underage. I know that might be an addition, but like, if we can't get a hold of you, is someone else?
But that's what I'm thinking.
I don't know if I have that information, but I can check.
You even do that.
But if they're on the younger side of that, age group, if you do send tangible correspondence to home, maybe their parents are like, hey, look, they will, open it up, let's see what it says. If it's a parent, I would be wanting
Say
to
they
know
give
what's
it a
happening.
formality, like
Yeah.
you got a letter sent home.
Right.
And that's okay as far as making things final. But the alternative is that suddenly they decide that they're gonna do something after not doing something for 9 months.
Right.
And that's, I mean, if you're doing something because you receive a letter, that's not
Why you were in it.
correct.
But it would give us an answer though.
Right,
Probably could be a
that's what I
number.
said, it'll make it final. If they say, I don't have the time, I moved into a different direction, but they suddenly say like, oh, yes, I still want to be on, but I haven't been involved for 9 months. It's like, where are you coming from? Mhm. Well,
That's a good question though, like if they do say, let's say you reach out to these two individuals again, and they say, well, I'll attend, and they do for one, like, would you bring it back to nominations, or is that something that the youth commission has to figure out and make, decide?
Yeah, they would have to. The commission is the one who has to, even with the legislation amendment, the commission has to make the recommendation to council that we've not seen this person, or, they've told me outside of here that they're not interested anymore, or, that would take this step away, but it doesn't take the whole thing. So, the other question I had in the letter, what do you want their deadline to be to contact me?
2 weeks, I would say. So.
Okay. And then do you want me to bring that back here before we move forward
can you
to the
email it?
committee? I can,
Email, what would we do?
whether or not the letter, and then, well, we have some templates, but I'll email it anyway. But then if the 2 weeks pass and I don't hear from them again, do you want me to put it on the agenda here? Or do you just want me to move forward with resolutions?
I think you've talked about it. At that point, it needs to go back to the youth commission.
Okay, and then it's okay to put them on the, okay.
Because I think we made a recommendation, if you have to send something to them now, that's about all we can do at this point, and then from there we can.
Yeah.
Whether or not they even show up now.
And then, pending applications. Page 5.
I did, talk to Chris when we came to, the committee of the whole. With, Alex, and the, I forgot what was it, the Golden Diversity.
Yeah.
I talked to him briefly, and I couldn't get out of him, like, why is she following through and finishing this part? He said, I'm very interested in council on this number, and we need to start, in the commission, and he said, I tried, but then I don't think he seemed like he was hesitant, and I couldn't figure out why. It's important to get to why are you hesitant? So
Yeah.
that we can decide whether. But I said, I see your name there, just, get your clearance. He's like, I know, I see, I got the phone call, but I know you're doing your job. He's like, I got the phone call, I get the text, and I'm like, okay, then, okay, what's going on? So I don't know if that helped any, but I look
Okay.
forward to.
I will,
Here for a little bit.
I will send in one more email. Since you've just recently spoken with him, maybe that will push him a little further.
It looks like we're keeping up with the
Mhm.
applicants.
Yes.
Just need more people to apply.
Yes, and to that, B and I have been doing once a week highlighting a board or commission on Facebook so that we're working. We're working on that recruitment piece,
A lot of care.
Yeah.
but not any applicants yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, it's sort of like starting a conversation where
Yeah.
people start to think about it.
Exactly. And it might not be their need, so they're waiting on.
One that's better, yeah.
Or to look out for the,
Right.
and then one will pop up and you'll like, we'll grab that out.
Anything else?
Nothing more from me.
Okay.
Sound like,
Can I have a motion to adjourn? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
That's for me, Karen.